Hey everyone, and thanks for joining us for our semifinals prediction show. I'm your host, Lauren Khalil. If you like listening to us chat about CrossFit news and everything that's going on in the sport, make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. We are headed into week 3 of semifinals and continuing with our sports analyst prediction for who will punch their ticket to the games. This week, we are looking at Granite Games. We have both the men and women's side, and we have our sports analyst, Patrick Clark, Brian Friend, and Tommy Marquez, all here to talk about their picks. Now, after week 1, we have the order of Brian leads the way, followed by Patrick Clark and Tommy. We are still tallying week 2, but boys, there is still time. It's not over yet, right?
Oh no, it's just getting started.
Yep. We got 3 more weeks.
Started.
Got him
All
right where I want him.
Patrick seems unusually happy about being in second, though.
That's because
he likes
I'm
to
confident.
be average.
No. I'm confident in week 2. I'm waiting for those votes to come in.
Votes.
Okay, well, the votes. No, the predictions.
Same difference.
All right, since Brian's leading the way, let's start with him. We'll take a look at his women's prediction. All 3 of you, though, had Mallory O'Brien as your first pick. Brian, how did you come up with your ranking headed into week 3 for the women?
Well, honestly, I don't even love my picks here anymore because I've learned more about the workouts since I've submitted these. But I think that, one thing that's pretty significant about the Granite Games is the amount of workouts. Half the workouts have running in them, and so probably think Emily Rolfe should be a little bit higher, as I think some of the other guys have. But Mal and Amanda, very, very established. Danny Spiegel is, she. I think we've all probably picked her to qualify, but she might be more of a wild card this weekend. She did really well on 5 of the 6 workouts or 6 of the 7 at West Coast last year, but she did terrible on the running workout. And so if that continues to be a problem for her, this might be a more challenging path for qualification than she was expecting.
Sure. Tommy, in your top 5 pick, you put Fisa Gaffi in there. What made you think that she was going to punch her ticket to the games this year?
Well, really, last year, all it came down to was kind of the heavy lift event that drove her down from the semifinals at the MAC. And looking at the programming from Granite Games this year in particular, there's a couple elements that I think that she can really separate herself on to give herself a little bit better boost to put her in contention. The barbell complex isn't something that she's ever going to, win or even maybe place, top 3 or 5 in with some heavy hitters like Barnhart, like Spiegel, and even some that's incredibly strong, like raw strength, like Chloe Wilson. But you look at like the speed chipper and those 72 chest to bar pull-ups in the middle surrounding the run that you basically have to do back to back with running. You look at the regional event 5 with a ton of upper body pulling. You look at the Minnesota mashup that has 30 ring muscle ups right in the middle of it. And those are really key elements of programming that I think can be turning points for athletes that excel in those moments. And so for Fee, one of the things she is absolutely best at is upper body pulling. And I think muscle ups, legless rope climbs are things that are right up her wheelhouse. So I think there's a couple moments in each one of these workouts where even if she's a little bit behind, she can make up a ton of ground and actually give herself a little bit of a boost in an otherwise longer chipper type event that may favor some other athletes.
Patrick, you and Brian put Alex Gazan in your top 5. Why did you, or I'm sorry, wrong graphic there. Why did you choose to put her in there?
I've known Alex for probably a little over a year now. She's part of the Underdogs crew out in Vegas. She's relatively young, just turned 21, I believe, but she's tough. She's upper body pushing, gymnastics, pressing. She's got it all. The only thing she's kind of weak at and snatches, but she's and also she's just tough. I mean, Kotler loves her. Justin Kotler, her coach, loves her because of that. And she's a former field hockey player, so running is no problem for her. And being on that hot turf at the Granite Games, which it was like it played a factor last year. It shouldn't play a factor for someone like her.
You all put Amanda Barnhart either top 2 or top 3. I mean, this is a name that we're all familiar with in the sport, but what about the workouts? What about the Granite Games makes her so high up on your picks? Brian, we can start with you.
I think she's just at a point now where she's she's like better than the program. Like the programming is not going to be a limiting factor for her. If you look at performances, consistency over the last 3 to 4 years, she's always in the top 10 at the games, and the only way you can be top 10 at the games is if you make it there. And she's proven that she's been able to qualify through a variety of different qualifying formats that we've had. She has, done very well last year in the semifinal format. I think she just knows how to manage workouts well. She's, Tommy talked about there's a lot of, upper body pulling here, which is maybe not the best thing for her, but I view her almost like kind of like a Brent Fikowski in this regard. Like she'll know how to manage those sets, how to manage those workouts to get the most out of her potential. And I think she'll be just fine over the course of the 6 events up in Minnesota.
And then all three of you also put Chloe Wilson as the wild card. Tommy, what made you decide to do that?
Well, she's an interesting case, right? Because you look at the West Coast Classic last year, where she finished 7th, and she made it to the last chance qualifier. She's an athlete that is also a full-time firefighter. She has a job that doesn't necessarily allow her to focus full-time on training. She's busy, being a public servant. And I think that there's enough body of evidence to know that the fitness that she's built over time, because remember, just a few years back in the South, she was a spot out from qualifying as well. So as in multiple formats, she's found a way to kind of find herself just within striking distance, despite not maybe having the same level of resources or time and attention to training that other people have. But she does have some things that she's tremendous at. She blew away the regional snatch ladder last year at West Coast Classic, but she does have a couple things that she had to work on in the off season. She really struggled in the legless rework at West Coast. You're going to get more of that at the Granite Games. That could be maybe a make or break type crux workout for her. If she gets through it clean, it really kind of propels her. If she struggles again, it could be the thing that weighs heavy on her. And that's just kind of what puts me in a wild card type of mind for someone like that. They got a few things that they're going to hit some groove pitches, but the few things that you're maybe not sure about, we don't see as much because she's not one of those athletes that's out in front of the public on a regular basis.
And
Tommy brought up the snatch ladder last year at West Coast. That was her Captain America moment, because we're all looking at Danny Spiegel in that middle lane, and here comes Chloe Wilson on your left, as she said to Danny as she came across, because she was in lane 1, and she no one knew that she won the event until she crossed that finish line. It was that was her Captain America moment.
Patrick, are there any other athletes that you left off the list that you were really torn between and thought, maybe in the right setting, they can punch their ticket?
Yeah, Fee, obviously she's not my wild card, but she's right there. And then someone like Jesse Harper out of Comp Train, Zoe Warren, and then of course Kelly Stone. Kelly Stone actually made it to the last chance qualifier out of the West Coast Classic last year. She comes from Colorado. She should do pretty well in these events as well. She's maybe not the greatest runner, but like Brian pointed out before, there's a lot of running events, but she's strong enough and has some decent gymnastics that she could push definitely for a last chance qualifier spot again this year, if not break into the top 5.
All right, let's move over to the men's side now. Lots of similarities, just kind of changing in order. But Brian, I want to start with you. Somebody that you added to your top 5 is Tim Poulsen. Nobody else put him on the list. What makes you confident?
Yeah, I mean, Tim is a seasoned veteran of the sport. And I particularly remember watching him last year in the thruster running workout, and he looked like he was moving backwards on the run. It was like so slow from the beginning that I was like, man, what is he doing? And come the end of the workout, he was right up there near the front of the pack. And that's just the example of the savvy that he has. He's been in the game forever, and the coaches that he's been working with have been in the game even longer than that. So Tim knows how to navigate a semifinal or regional style weekend as good as anyone. This is an extremely difficult men's field, and I can certainly understand why you would leave someone like this off. But I felt like he's the kind of guy that even in the midst of a really deep field will just find a way to get done what he needs to get done. Execution is going to matter. You can't have small mistakes here. And I think Tim's the kind of guy that will be pretty unlikely to have a mistake that keeps him out. If his fitness keeps him out, that's one thing, but I don't think he'll make the execution error.
One thing on that, Brian, I agree completely, and he's an athlete that broke through late in his career, so he was at multiple regionals before he finally came through, and I think it was on the back of that planning. And I kind of overlooked him in this instance. I was worried that he had maybe an injury in training based on a post that he had on his social media that he had to pull back for a week. He says he's going to be 100%, which maybe would make me change my pick now after getting confirmation of that. But look, big fan of Tim Paulson. I think I'm kind of regretting not putting him in.
Well, Tommy, let's pull up yours. Where would you have put Tim Paulson now that he's kind of in our conversation?
I think it would be in that 5 spot with Sam Quant. I mean, it's hard to know. It's crazy to think that someone that has a games medal around their neck we're unsure of just because of that chronic illness thing that Sam Quant had been dealing with. I mean, he looked like a shell of himself at the MAC last year, and it was unfortunate that we found out after the fact that he was in the hospital for a few days, and it's something that he's been dealing with a ton. And you know what? He made the move back home. And hopefully that's something that's allowed him to train more consistently. But he does have that perennial games type skill set that he's built up from qualifying when he was like 20 back in 2016. I just think that there's this Granite Games field is for the men is so heavy. And there are 3 or 4 other guys that I could easily see ending up in the top 5 here. And it's at no fault of anyone else. So like I wouldn't be surprised if Paulson snuck in and one of the guys on this list got upset. I think there's going to be some broken hearts leaving from this weekend.
Who do you think's going to have the broken heart?
I mean,
$1 million question.
You, Lauren. Always you, Lauren.
It's always me.
I'll tell you who's going to have the broken heart is all the fans if Colton Mertens doesn't make it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but none of you guys have him on your list.
I know. It's really tough. I mean, I personally think that Colton is fitter this year than he was last year when he qualified. I think that this set of programming, and he's a guy who will, if he hears me say this, he's going to say like, forget that. I'm going to prove you wrong. Like he wants the challenge. I don't think this slate of programming is good for him. The 3 running events, legless rope climb event, he'll have some good performances. Don't get me wrong, but I think he's going to have too many ups and downs relative to a field that's full of consistency. When you talk about guys like Brent Fikowski, Travis May, or Chandler Smith that are just like, they're not going to give away points on any workouts the way that Colton probably will on 1 or 2.
And to touch on Brian's point, like last year, remember he won back-to-back events and in a 5-event stretch had 4 finishes inside the top 3, and he still qualified by 3 points. Like that's just the nature of the game for him. As far as sometimes like the programming just fits in a certain way, and when he has that opportunity, he has to hit the home run. Otherwise, there's just some things that mechanically don't fit well for him.
All right, PC, when we look at your men's picks, ooh, what was that? Was that you, PC, looking at your picks like it's a surprise?
No, I think that was Tommy.
That wasn't me.
That was me actually. I gotta know, PC. Why do you have Phil Toon number 2?
I everything that I've seen from this offseason. Now, granted, he was pushing at Wadapalooza. He was, he's near the top of it. He kind of fell off there at the end. But one of his major weaknesses heading into this season was his upper body pulling. So you would think of an event like legless rope climbs. But talking to Matt Torres and then talking to some of his training partners, he's been working on that just all season, and that's something he said he's made into a strength of his. We're talking doing legless rope climbs with vests on and stuff like that. But I just like him. And plus, we're playing a game right here, and I'm playing for some discs. And, I got to throw something out there to catch you, Brian. So, if I hit on that, that's a big one. So. That's
another good point, PC, because I'm playing a little defense right now.
Yeah.
Week 1, a couple of my chances that I took didn't quite work out. I think a few of you guys were maybe swapping picks with Katie behind the scenes, just to try and get another driver out of me on the disc golf course. But I mean, if we're looking at like how so far the brute strength camp has performed, relatively speaking, to last year and the improvements that they've made across the board, that's a pretty good sign for Phil.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think that this is, again, not the best set of workouts for him. I could see him in a different slate of workouts being first or second even in a North American men's field. I think he does have that potential at the top end with the right type of stuff. I think he's a little bit newer into CrossFit and hasn't had the chance to round out his game. Like I said, Travis Mayer, Chandler Smith, Brent Fikowski, Tim Paulson, these guys have been around a long time. They don't have those weaknesses anymore. And if they do have them, they know exactly what to do to make sure that they don't have a negative effect on their overall points. Phil's still learning some of that stuff. The refinement of the movement patterns and how to navigate a competition weekend. If something goes awry, how does he bounce back from it? We saw that happen to Taylor Self last year. I have confidence Phil will make the games, but I think that this field, these workouts, 4th or 5th would be a really good weekend for him.
Okay, and finally, since you guys are saying that maybe some of these picks were safe, was all of you putting Brent Fikowski as number 1? Is that just like a security, like we feel good about it, or do you really think he's going to stand at the top of the podium?
PC, take it away.
Don't all jump at once.
I know. The programming, there's like, he's a great runner. He's no stranger to the Granite Games, their programming. He looks good. I mean, he finished 3rd last year at the games in a games where he said he wasn't injured, but we all have our suspicions about that. So for a less than 100% Fikowski to, finish 3rd at the games and then take a long break, because he didn't do any off-season competitions. So whatever injuries he might not have had, he's rested up. I mean, I think we're going to have one of the most prepared Brent Fikowskis that we've seen in a while, and healthier Brent Fikowskis that we've seen in a while. And yeah, the guy likes to perform, and this is the format, the programming. It lends to all his strengths.
I just when I think about Brent Fikowski in a weekend like this, I think back to West Coast Regional 2018, where it was a loaded field, a stacked field, and there were tons of people that were saying, yeah, Brent will probably qualify, but he won't beat all these guys, and he just basically laid waste to them. I mean, every workout was executed perfectly. I'm serious, and that's the kind of guy that he is. Like, he knows what to do in this kind of a situation. He's extremely calm under pressure. He's extremely exact in his, when you see 30 muscle-ups in the middle of the workout, that's going to be a make or break part of that workout for a lot of guys. Brent will know exactly his capacity, exactly his sets and his rest to get through that in an optimal time for him, so that he can take advantage of all the other parts of a workout like that he's good at. I think that Brent is, despite the quality of the field, not just a safe pick, but a smart pick to win.
Kind of working on what Brian said right there. If you look at that, it's a quality field, but if you look at any of those athletes, has any of them beaten him in, I don't know, multiple workouts at the games or any other online or any other competition that's live? And the answer is no.
Yeah. And like programming wise, like 3 of the 4 workouts programmed by Granite Games are essentially big chippers. You have these like ladder chip. It's like the back half of the competition. Like Brent will be fine on the legless rope climbs. He might have to maybe manage the lifting event, just because you have guys like Anthony Davis in the field that are going to move a semi truck in that event. but every time you have these longer chippers, you're adding more points of analysis for Brent to dissect it, right? It's not just as simple as a couplet spinning your wheels like the thruster handstand walk. You have all these different transitions and push points for him to be able to kind of pick it apart. And then you throw the fact that there's a ton of running and machine work in there. I mean, he's going to put on a masterclass, I think. And if he doesn't, that is more a departure from the norm than anything else. And so at this point, like Brian said, it would be the smart pick to assume that we're going to see more of what he has consistently shown us in live competition.
And for those who love the deep dive, Tommy and Sean Woodland and I actually did an episode where we featured Brent Fikowski in chippers over his career. It wasn't one of the numbers games episodes we did a couple of years ago. So go hit him up. I think it's probably in the Patreon section, but if you like that stuff, it's there for you.
We love all the content. Brian, Tommy, Patrick, thank you guys so much for letting us take a look at your picks. Tommy's on the defense. Brian, we're seeing if we can dethrone you.
He's going down.
Let's go.
Thanks, guys.